Coming up on Backroads of Montana, we'll visit a family in the Big Hole Valley that's been haying together for generations.
I like the freedom and I like the independence.
We'll roll over a bridge that just may be the last of its kind in the United States. From Sweetgrass, we'll meet a woman who puts the local in local news.
And I suppose you've got some more news for me, do you?
We'll get in rhythm with a musician who's entertained for 70 years.
What you see is what you get.
And thrill to the sound of bugling elk near Moiese. This episode of Backroads stacks up with the best of it.
Backroads of Montana is made possible with production support from the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communications on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans. Travel Montana and the University of Montana, where the discovery continues.
Well, it's beautiful with spacious skies, has amber waves of green, and has purple mountains majestic that rise up out of the plains. And all across America, from sea to shining sea, where the mountains and the prairies meet, is a place I need to be. Home is where Montana is my home. From mountain peaks to prairie lands, the places I have known. And I'm bound to ramble, yes, I'm bound to roam. And when I'm in off the road now, boys, Montana is my home.
Hello, I'm William Marcus. Welcome to the Backroads of Montana, a program about the interesting people and celebrated places that define the Treasure State. Today, we're at the C.M. Russell Museum in Great Falls. For 50 years, the C.M. Russell Museum has been active collecting, preserving, and researching the life and art of Charles Marion Russell. As you stroll through 14 galleries containing over 11,000 works of art and objects, you'll discover the West through the eyes of Charlie Russell, who was not only Montana's best-known artist, but also an historian, an advocate of the Northern Plains Indians, a philosopher, and a cowboy. Backroads congratulates the museum on its 50-year history of sharing with the people who loved the West as Charlie did, this man's art and vision. Our first story takes us to the beautiful Big Hole Valley between the Pioneer and Beaverhead Mountains in southwest Montana. There we'll meet a family that's called the valley home for 5 generations. The Big Hole Valley is famous for its sprawling ranches, its cold winters, and something else. The famous haystacks are made using a clever device invented near here in 1910. It's called a beaver slide, named for its slanted wood platform that mimics the trails left by beavers on riverbanks. These simple derricks have given ranch families a cheap and reliable way to store winter forage. The Hershey family has been in the Big Hole since 1893, when the first generation came west to homestead.
They were cheesemakers from Switzerland, my grandparents. And they had milk cows and they made cheese and hauled it by wagon over to Gibbonsville and to Anaconda.
To feed those milk cows, the Hersheys had to store tons of the valley's nutritious hay. The beaver slide makes the work quick, but requires lots of hands. Jill Eliel, now 79, has been helping with the haying since she was 6.
The first summer I got 20 silver dollars. Well, there was a bank in Wisdom at the time, and I went down, I got a check, and I went down and got 20 silver dollars out of the bank, and I wish I still had them.
Years later, haying season brought her something money couldn't buy.
When our kids were little, it was my vacation, because I never, ever got away from the house, and except in haying time. And I couldn't hear anybody saying, Mom, doing all this help. And, but I just love it. I love the hayfield. I like the freedom and I like the independence.
Jill's younger sister, Joyce, started in the hayfield at age 4, delivering water to the men.
Then we had a one-horse rake. And when we were about 6, we'd start to rake with the one horse. And that horse knew more than we did. She'd just go where we were supposed to go.
These days, it's a little more hectic in the hayfield. These buck rakes are custom-modified truck bodies, driven in reverse, backwards as forwards. The big steel tongs rake up the sun-dried hay and drive it to the beaver slide. They're tough rigs and reliable.
For 48 years, I've driven this same buck rake. Everything works, you know. The gears work, and well, everything but the brakes. I've never had any brakes, but that's all right.
Not that anybody is slowing down. The object is to get the mowed hay to the area in front of the beaver slide and pushed onto the basket. Fire up the hoist and haul away. Over and over and over. Moving the cage forward to build a rectangular haystack that reaches nearly 30 feet tall and weighs about 20 tons. Just a couple of miles away at Jack Hershey's ranch, the wind is taking a little off the top as the crew sets up in a new hayfield. Fred Hershey, Jack's son, has come over from his ranch to lead the crew that's putting up his dad's hay. For decades, the Big Hole was a regular stop for migrant farmhands. Those seasoned workers don't show up anymore.
Help's hard to find. That's, as you see, we just got a bunch of kids. I mean, kids. The oldest one there is a boy, that Jeremy, you know, and I think he's 22. So, and the youngest one's 9. So, it's kids.
Toby Shepard from nearby Jackson is 12 and a bit short for his buck rake.
Yeah, this buck rake my dad built, and he was really tall. It's easy to steer though because it has power steering. But you can't look straight anyway. You can't see over the top of your load.
Everyone admits there were a few close calls at the beginning of haying season, but today it's like a well-rehearsed line dance. Nothing slows haying except rain and breakdowns. Fred sends his daughter Murphy to fetch the mechanic, but he can't wait while his crew sits idle.
$9.16. I don't think it goes like that. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
Things are back up and running before the mechanic arrives.
Fuel pump. And I'm no mechanic. I'm far from a mechanic, but I fixed it. I was kind of proud of myself.
Fred's father, Jack Hershey, says ranching takes a certain kind of people. His family's called this place home since 1943.
Well, I don't know any difference. There must be. We don't know any different. Sometimes there's not much profit in it. So you just got to like it is all. You do a lot of things you don't think you shouldn't do, but you're going to have to do them to make these ranches work.
With the sun sinking toward the Bitterroot Range and an evening storm blowing in, the last loads of the day go up. For Jack Hershey, it's the end of another day in his family's long history in this beautiful valley.
We're pretty proud of it. Well, I've been here over 100 years. There's not many ranches that has the same ground, owns the same ground for over 100 years.
But Jack's son, Fred, knows that these are some of the last days of this long family tradition. He doubts he'd be here if he didn't have his family close at hand.
I guess if I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't do it. I mean, what would be the use? I don't know, it's not going to be as much fun when some of them are gone, you know. That'll be the tough part.
One person was on everyone's mind during haying season on the Hershey ranches. Dick Hershey, the youngest brother of Jack, Joyce, and Jill, was battling cancer in a Missoula hospital, a fight he lost a couple of weeks after the last of the hay was stacked. With his passing, the Hershey family lost a beloved brother, and Montana lost a good hand. In 1912, the Great Falls chapter of the Elks built a new temple and asked Charlie Russell to contribute something. He painted his lodge brothers this magnificent work entitled The Exalted Ruler. In 1994, it took 25,000 people, contributing a total of over $1.1 million, to buy it back from the lodge and secure it for the C.M. Russell Museum. Today, you'll find the Exalted Ruler here where everyone can enjoy it as part of the museum's permanent collection. We found our elk bugling on the National Bison Range in western Montana. With over 18,000 acres, there's more to see and hear than just bison.
There's something about hearing that animal bugle. It's just, you know, some kind of a symbol of wilderness, of something primeval, primordial. You know, you just have that hair stands up on the back of your neck and you think, my God, what a sound. They do three things. They're advertising. They do it by bugling, by making noise. And then they stink. They really smell good. That's got to do part of it. And the other is display. How they display, how they herd the females, that sort of thing. But basically, it's nothing in the world but advertisement. Here I am, and it's breeding season. Y'all come. The bugling is not to say this is my ground, stay away from me. It's an attraction to bring females to them. They're also telling the other males at the same time, I'm here, and you listen to the sound of that bugle. Then you listen to the guttural sound of that grunting that takes place after the bugle. And you decide whether you really want to come in and challenge me or not. Well, they spar and then they fight. And there's a big difference. Probably what you saw, they were engaging their antlers and pushing and shoving a little bit. When they really engage and really fight, there's a big difference. And you can get, they very frequently get badly injured doing that. You always know that it's fall in elk country when you can hear that bugle and you know that something's really wild and something's really special.
To see and hear elk on the National Bison Range, you have to start early in the season. September is usually the best month to hear their haunting calls. The largest piece in the C.M. Russell Museum collection is Charlie's studio. From 1903 until his death, he created all of his major works in this room. Here are Russell's easels, models, and paints, a tripod table he built to hold his brushes, as well as his personal collection of Western artifacts. Russell also entertained in this studio. Other noted artists, stars of the silent screen, and cowboy friends were treated to Charlie's own home cooking: beans, stew, biscuits, and cowboy coffee. After dinner, Charlie encouraged rounds of storytelling and laughter. The Teton County Threshing Bee can be a noisy event. There we found entertainer Bill Obernolte, who reminisced about touring the state with his musical group, the New Happy Four. You'll have to listen carefully to pick out his guitar, but it's there, mixed among the din of the thunderous old steam engine, the steady buzz of the sawmill, and the pounding of the blacksmith's trip hammer, right over there. Just beyond the cloggers is the Great Northern Depot. Inside, surrounded by crates, grinders, and cream separators, you'll find Bill Obernolte and a few of his friends.
How's the lawnmower business?
Bill is one of Montana's more seasoned musicians, and right now he's filling the rafters with music and a memory or two.
I'm 80 years old, and I started playing when I was 10 years old.
We were happy, oh, so happy, little darling.
It was a barn, a great big old dairy barn. And the old fellow that had the barn, he'd lost his guitar player, banjo player, or something. And he asked my dad if I would sit in with him. And my dad says, you better ask Bill. And that's when it started. But I got 50 cents.
Memories that linger in my heart.
We traveled all over the state. Conrad, Shelby, Cut Bank, Shoto. We were playing in Glendive, and we had a sleet storm. And when we got there, the car was froze up. The doors were froze shut. We sat out there in front of the hall and honked the horn, and they had to come out with hair dryers, and they blew that ice off of around the doors of that car. We had a lot of fun, and it's still fun. I'm half German and half Irish, and I hate beer. The accordion player drank my drinks. He would. He'd get the listing pretty bad. But I'm here to tell you, he never fell down. And he was a remarkable man. I was pinch hitting with the Happy Four, and this lady come up and wanted to sing with us. And I believe the saxophone player said, well, we don't usually do this. But anyway, she persuaded us to let her sing. And she got done singing, and I just said, well, lady, you sound just like Patty Page. She says, I'm glad to know you do. And I could have hid right in there. There are better guitar players than me, but I don't think there's anybody that enjoyed it any more. I'll probably play till I die or somebody throws me out.
Don't worry, no one's throwing Bill out. In fact, he's still touring. Once a week, he visits the local nursing home to entertain the residents. One special aspect of a Backroads story is the route we take to get there. On our way to visit Bill, we took the old Stearns Augusta road off Highway 200 and found ourselves rolling over a piece of Montana history. Technically speaking, it's a four-span, pin-connected, half-deck truss bridge. But there are far better ways to describe the elegant practicality of the Dearborn River High Bridge. Neatly tucked into a picturesque canyon, it straddles a portion of the Dearborn River once crossed by Salish and Blackfeet hunters, splashing their way into buffalo country. Centuries later, Lewis and Clark County needed a crossing for area farmers and ranchers. Since 1897, the Dearborn River High Bridge has faithfully served that purpose. It's witnessed countless horse-drawn wagons, lumbering farm vehicles, even a few cattle drives. Originally built by the King Bridge Company of Cleveland, Ohio, it was shipped to Montana by rail and reassembled. Pin connections instead of rivets simplified construction, and the patented truss system allowed for a reliable, low-maintenance structure. But by the 1980s, the old bridge was beginning to sag. Because of its rare design, perhaps the last of its type in the United States, and popular interest, county officials elected to rehabilitate the structure rather than replace it. In 2003, the bridge got a facelift. New foundations were poured. A new deck was laid down and guardrails were added for safety. Finally, a fresh coat of Venetian red, its original color. The bridge has already outlived the company that built it by 75 years. Now, after thoughtful restoration, it should last another 75. Locals describe the Dearborn River High Bridge as a giant spider's web, delicately spun across the canyon. As you travel across and hear the straining timber deck separating you from the 100-foot drop to the river below, you'll be happy to be caught in its charm. The Dearborn River High Bridge was recently listed on the National Register of Historic Places. The C.M. Russell Museum was made possible by the will of Emma Josephine Trigg. Miss Trigg and her parents were close personal friends of Charles and Nancy Russell. Over the years, the Trigg family received many illustrated letters, sketches, and paintings from Russell. It was his way of keeping the friends in touch and sharing personal news while he and Nancy were out of town. No matter how small the town in Montana, there's always a need for news. We found one woman in Sweetgrass who's doing her best to keep the community informed. It's a Saturday, but Wava Danbrook still has work to do. Wava and her husband Melvin are headed down to the local cafe for some research.
And I think they spun around about 4 times before I got out of the yard. Oh my gosh, I said, they're next door neighbors to our friends. Were those the good old days or the bad days? Melvin and Arnie Farbo are the oldest people here, including you.
It's not all coffee and conversation. This is one place Wava gets information for her column. She's the local correspondent for the Sweetgrass News, an article that appears in the weekly Shelby paper. Wava's a newcomer to the newspaper business. She's only been writing for a few years. The last reporter quit, leaving Sweetgrass with no local news.
Gee, we got to have some Sweetgrass news. And as you know, I like to talk. And I think that was one of the main reasons that I've continued to do it, that it's just, I feel it's kind of an obligation in a way.
Wava might be new to reporting, but she's not new to the area. Her husband Melvin was born and raised near Sweetgrass. Melvin served in the Army during World War II, then returned to Montana. He met and married Wava, a Canadian girl from across the border in Alberta. They've been in the area ever since. Back at the cafe, Leonard and Betty are still swapping stories. Jim is listening closely, and so is Irene. They're all kind of like field reporters for Wava. After coffee, Irene returns home to write down details of her North Dakota trip. She lists the highlights and will give the notes to Wava at church. It's part of Wava's informal journalism method.
If somebody has a new baby or somebody gets married or there's a death or something, I try to get a little information from that person rather than hearsay.
Wava's one of several correspondents scattered in small towns near Shelby. Once thriving communities that had their own newspapers now have shrinking populations. But there's still a need for news. There's still a need for an identity. Wava helps fill the void in Sweetgrass, covering it all from family visits to delicious dinners, with all the weather in between.
Say they can't remember of having such a dry, hot July and August. Thanks, Bob and Amy, and your 2 girls. You are a great asset. We've been going to weddings or funerals the past 10 days. That's life in our small community. You know, it's kind of fun to know that people maybe they went on a trip and then they give you all the details of what they saw. And I think the worst thing probably that I have to write about is the deaths of friends. Good morning, Joyce. How are you?
Sundays are even busier for Wava. There's lots of visiting at the church in nearby Sunburst. It's a congregation filled with appreciative readers.
Oh, enjoy it. That's the first thing I guess I open up to, is the Sweetgrass and Sunburst News.
Okay, so Nancy isn't exactly an objective reader.
They know I'm Wava's daughter. It's like, oh, I know who you are. You must be Wava's daughter. I'm like, yeah. You're Nancy. I read about you in the paper. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Every week.
Wava says local news wouldn't be the same without putting family in the column. But don't be fooled. Wava isn't afraid to stir things up, like the time Sweetgrass got a new rest stop, and a question arose about maintaining its appearance.
And they wanted the grass, some of the people wanted the grass to be natural.
Leave it go to weeds, and it was like, everybody's like, why aren't they mowing that?
Now, what do you mean natural grass?
So Mom put a little bit in the paper about it, and they bought a lawnmower. So it's like, I guess it paid off then.
Oh my gosh, Wavy, you sure shook him up a little bit, or shook somebody up.
There's no controversy this week. It's late Sunday, and the stories keep rolling in.
Stuff that you give me, and I suppose you've got some more news for me, do you?
This is the most common way to gather area news.
You went to Ennis. Okay.
If you want it in the paper, just call Wava.
Okay, how'd you find the kids?
While Melvin watches his favorite bull riding show, Wava writes her column. She used to use a typewriter, but now she prefers to write it longhand. It helps her think better. On Monday, all that's left is the half-hour drive south to Shelby. Melvin drives so Wava can check her work.
Hi. Okay, here's a bit of news for you.
Good.
5 whole pages this time.
All right.
And so it's very helpful. That's why we have the correspondence, because it kind of keeps the pulse of that small community, and it's in every week, and people look forward to seeing it.
People like Leonard and Betty. They know the paper is coming, so they can catch up on close friends who don't happen to live close by.
You know, the local news is great for me. I really enjoy it, because a lot of it we wouldn't even know about if we didn't get the local news.
For Irene Gerner, it's about relatives who aren't close enough for coffee, but want to stay in touch.
We have family away in other towns that get the paper and read it too, so they keep track of us.
And for the rest of us, these are small pieces of history, recorded in a small paper, documenting a small town, written by the people who live there and love their community. It's a challenge for small papers to find someone to write the area community news. Wava says she'll keep doing it as long as she's able. Charlie Russell knew for about a year that he didn't have much time left. He asked his wife Nancy that he be drawn to his burial site behind horses. When he died in October 1926, Nancy found this old hearse in Cascade. It hadn't been used in 15 years. 2 black horses, Sam and Rats, were loaned from Railway Express, and Charlie's last request was honored. Charlie Russell witnessed the passing of an era. He once said, "The West is dead. You might lose a sweetheart, but you won't forget her." The color, the action, the people, and the adventure of the West will always be with us through his work. And that's our show. We'd like to thank Nicole Cosby, Director Inez Wallens, and the staff at the C.M. Russell Museum in Great Falls for all their help. If you have an idea for the Backroads show, drop us a line at the Backroads of Montana, the University of Montana, Missoula, Montana, 59812. And if you've missed any episode of Backroads, remember that they're all available at your local city-county library. As long as you keep watching, we'll keep covering the Backroads of Montana. I'm William Marcus. See you next time.
Backroads of Montana is made possible with production support from the Greater Montana Foundation, encouraging communications on issues, trends, and values of importance to Montanans. Travel Montana and the University of Montana, where the discovery continues.
Places I have known, and I'm bound to ramble. Yes, I'm bound to roam. And when I'm in off the road now, boys, Montana is my home. Coming in off the road now, boys, you know I'm heading home.